Chapter 24. Amsterdam, 5:20 in the afternoon. Jan van der Heuvel was in his office on the 5th floor of the classic, net-gabled house, gazing out over the treetops at the sightseeing boat on the canal, waiting for time to pass. The door to his office opened, and Mika, a pretty girl of 20 with short dark hair, entered. She wore a small skirt and a fitted jacket, her long legs bare to her little lace-up boots. The girl lowered her eyes, said that if he didn't need her for anything, she would leave for the day. "Have a good evening," Van der Heuvel said. He walked her to the office door and locked it behind her, returning to his seat at the long drawing table, and looked down at the street running along the Kaisergracht canal until he saw Mika get into her fiancé's Renault and speed away. Only then did Van der Heuvel attend to his computer. The teleconference wasn't for another 40 minutes, but he wanted to establish contact early so that he could record the proceedings. He tapped keys until he made the connection, and his friend's face came on the screen. "Horst," he said, "I am here." At that same time, a brunette woman of 40 was on the bridge of her 118-foot yacht, anchored in the Mediterranean off the coast of Portofino. The yacht was custom-made, constructed of high tensile aluminum, with 6 cabins, a master suite, and a video conference center in the saloon, which easily converted to a cinema. The woman left her young captain and took the stairs down to her suite, where she removed a Versace jacket from the closet and slipped it on over her halter top. Then she crossed the galleyway to the media room and booted up her computer. When the connection was made to the encrypted line, she smiled into the webcam. "Gina Prasley, checking in. Horst, how are we today?" 4 time zones away in Dubai, a tall bearded man wearing traditional Middle Eastern clothing passed a mosque and hurried to a hole-in-the-wall restaurant down the street. He greeted the proprietor and continued on through the kitchen, aromatic with garlic and rosemary. Pushing aside a heavy curtain, he took the stairs down to the basement level and unlocked a heavy wooden door leading to a private room. In Hong Kong's Victoria Peak section, a young chemist flicked on his computer. He was in his 20s, with an IQ in the high 170s. As the software loaded, he looked through his curtains down the long slope past the tops of the cylindrical high-rises and farther below to the brightly lit towers of Hong Kong. It was unusually clear for this time of year, and his gaze had drifted to Victoria Harbor and beyond, to the lights of Kowloon, where the computer signaled, and he turned his attention to the emergency meeting of the Alliance. In Sao Paulo, Rafael dos Santos, a man of 50, drove to his home at just past 3 in his new Weissman GT M5F sports coupe. The car cost $250,000 and went from 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds with a top speed of 193 miles per hour. Rafi, as he was called, loved this car. He braked at the entrance to the underground garage, tossed the keys to Tomas, and took the elevator that opened inside his apartment. There he crossed several thousand square feet of Jatoba hardwood floors, past ultra-modern furnishings, and entered his home office with its view of the gleaming facade of the Renaissance Hotel on Alameda Santos. Rafi pressed a button on his desk, and a thin screen rose vertically up through the center. He wondered again at the purpose of this meeting. Something had gone wrong, but what? He touched the keyboard and pressed his thumb to the ID pad. Rafi greeted the leader of the Alliance in Portuguese. "Horst, you old bastard, make this good. You have our undivided attention." Chapter 25. In the Swiss Alps, Horst Werner sat in the upholstered chair in his library. Flames leapt in the fireplace, and pin lights illuminated the 8-foot-long scale model of the Bismarck he had made himself. There were bookshelves on every wall but no windows, and behind the cherrywood paneling there was a 3-inch thick wall of lead-lined steel. Horst's safe room was linked to the world by sophisticated internet circuitry, giving him the feeling that this chamber was the very center of the universe. The dozen members of the Alliance had all signed on to the encrypted network. They all spoke English to greater and lesser degrees, their live pictures on his screen. After greeting them, Horst moved quickly to the point of the meeting. An American friend has sent Jan a film as an amusement. I am very interested in your reaction. A white light filled 12 linked computer screens and then clarified as the camera focused on a jacuzzi-style tub. Inside the tub was a dark-skinned young girl, nude with long black hair, lying on her stomach in about 4 inches of water. She was tied up in the way that Americans quaintly called hog-tied, her hands and feet behind her, with a rope that also passed around her throat. There was a man in the video, his back to the camera, and when he turned, one of the Alliance members said, "Henri." Henri was naked, sitting on the edge of the tub, the clear plastic mask obscuring his features. He spoke to the camera. "You see, there is very little water, but enough. I don't know which is more lethal for Rosa, whether she will choke or if she will drown. Let's watch and see." Henri turned and spoke in Spanish to the sobbing child, then translated for the camera. "I told Rosa to keep her legs pulled back toward her head. I said maybe if she could do that for another hour, I would let her live. Maybe." Horst smiled at Henri's audacity, the way he stroked the back of the child's head, soothing her, but she cried out, clearly a great effort when she was so tired of trying to live. "Por favor, déjame marchar, eres malvado." Henri spoke to the camera. "She says to let her go, that I am evil. Well, I love her anyway, sweet child." The girl continued to sob, gasping for air. Every time her legs relaxed and the rope tightened around her throat, she wailed, "Mama!" Then her head dropped, her final exhalation causing bubbles to break the surface of the water. Henri touched the side of her neck and shrugged. "It was the ropes," he said. "Anyway, she committed suicide. A beautiful tragedy. Just what I promised." He was smiling when the video faded to black. Gina spoke now, indignant. "Horst, this is in violation of his contract, yes?" "Actually, Henri's contract only says he cannot take work that would prevent him from fulfilling his obligations to us. So he is not technically in violation, he's just freelancing." Jan's voice came over the speakers. "Yes, you see how Henri looks for ways to give us the finger? This is unacceptable." Raphael broke in. "Okay, he is difficult, but let's admit Henri has his genius. We should work with him, give him a new contract." "That says what, for example?" "Henri has been making short films for us, like the one we just saw. I suggest we have him make a documentary." Jan jumped in, excited. "Very good, Rafi. Wall to wall with Henri. A year in the life, yeah? Salary and bonuses commensurate with the quality of the action." "Exactly, and he's exclusive to us," said Raphael. "He starts now on location with the parents of the swimsuit girl." The Alliance discussed terms and they put some teeth into the contract, penalties for failure to perform. That phrase provided a light moment, and then after they had voted, Horst made the call to Hawaii. Chapter 26. The McDaniels' and I were still in the Typhoon Bar as dust dropped over the island. For the past hour, Barbara had sweated me like a pro. When she was satisfied that I was an okay guy, she brought me into her family's lives with her passion and a natural gift for storytelling that I wouldn't have expected from a high school math and science teacher. Levon could barely string 2 sentences together. He wasn't inarticulate, he just wasn't with us. I read him as choked up with fear and too anxious about his daughter to concentrate. But he expressed himself vividly with his body language, tightening his fists, turning away when tears welled up, frequently taking off his glasses and pressing his palms over his eyes. I'd asked Barbara, "How did you learn that Kim was missing?" At that, Levon's cell phone rang. He looked at the faceplate and walked away toward the elevator. I heard him say, "Lieutenant Jackson?" "Not tonight. Why not?" After a pause, he said, "Okay, 8 a.m. "Sounds like we have a date with the police in the morning. Come with us," Barbara said. She took my phone number, patted my hand, and then she kissed my cheek. I said goodnight to Barbara, then ordered another club soda, no lime, no ice. I sat in a comfortable chair overlooking the $100 million view, and in the next 15 minutes, the atmosphere at the Typhoon Bar picked up considerably. Handsome people in fresh suntans and translucent clothing and snow-cone colors dropped into chairs at the railing, while singles took the high-back stools at the long bar. Laughter rose and fell like the warm breeze that gusted through the wide-open space, riffling hairlines and skirt hems as it passed. The piano player uncovered the Steinway, then turned sideways on the piano seat and broke into an old Peter Allen standard, delighting the crowd as he sang I Go to Rio. I noted the security cameras over the bar, dropped several bills on the table, and walked down the stairs and past the pool, lit now so it looked like aqua-colored glass. I continued past the cabanas, taking a walk that Kim might have taken 2 nights ago. The beach was nearly empty of people, and the sky still light enough to see the shoreline that ringed the whole of Maui like a halo around the eclipse of the moon. I pictured walking behind Kim on Friday night. Her head might have been down, hair whipping around her face, the strong surf obliterating all other sound. A man could have come up behind her with a rock or a gun or a simple chokehold. I walked on the hard-packed sand, passing hotels to my right, empty chases and cockeyed umbrellas as far as I could see. After a quarter mile, I turned off the beach, walked up a path that skirted the Four Seasons, another 5-star hotel where $800 a night might buy a room with a view of the parking lot. I continued on through the hotel's dazzling marble lobby and out to the street. 15 minutes later, I was back sitting in my rented Chevy, parked in the leafy shadow surrounding the Wailea Princess beneath a rush of waterfalls. If I'd been a killer, I could have dumped my victim into the surf or slung her over my shoulder and carried her out to my car. I could have left the scene without anyone noticing. Easy breezy. Chapter 27. I started my engine and followed the moon to Stella Blues, the cheerful cafe in Kihei, K-I-H-E-I. It has high peak ceilings and a wraparound bar, now buzzing with the weekend crowd of locals and cruise ship tourists enjoying their first night in port. I ordered a Jack Daniels and mahi-mahi from the bar, took my drink outside to a table for 2 on the patio. As the votive candle guttered in its glass, I called Amanda. Amanda Diaz and I had been together for almost 2 years. She's 5 years younger than me. A pastry chef and a self-described biker chick, which means she takes her antique Harley for a run on the Pacific Coast Highway some weekends to blow off the steam she can't vent in the kitchen. Mandy is not only smart and gorgeous, but when I look at her, all those rock and roll songs about booming hearts and loving her till the day I die make total sense. Right then, I was aching to hear my sweetie's voice, and she didn't disappoint, answering the phone on the 3rd ring. After some verbal high-fives, and at my request, she told me about her day at Intermezzo. It was Groundhog Day, Benji. Remy fired Rocco. Again, Amanda said, going into a French accent now. What'd I have to say to make you think like Chef? This confit, it looks like pigeon poop. He put about 12 oohs in poop. She laughed, said hired him back, and 10 minutes later, as usual, and then I scorched the creme brulee. French. You are making me crazy. She laughed again. And you, Benji, are you getting your story? I met with the missing girl's folks. They're talking to me. Oh boy, how grim was that? I caught Mandy up on the interview with Barbara, told her how much I liked the McDanielses and that they had 2 other kids, both boys adopted from Russian orphanages. Their oldest son was almost catatonic from neglect when the police in St. Petersburg found him. The younger boy has fetal alcohol syndrome. Kim decided to become a pediatrician because of her brothers. Ben, honey? Am I breaking up? No, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Totally. Then listen, be careful, will you? I felt a slight burr of irritation. Amanda was uncommonly intuitive, but I was in no danger. Careful of what? Remember when you left your briefcase with all your notes on the Donato story in a diner? You're going to bring up the bus again, aren't you? Well, since you mention it. I was under your spell, goofball. I was looking at you when I stepped off the curb. If you were here, now it could happen again. What I'm saying is you sound the same way now as you did then. I do, huh? Yeah, you kinda do, so watch out, okay? Pay attention, look both ways. 10 feet away, a couple cleaned glasses, held hands across a small table. Honeymooners, I thought. I miss you, I said. I miss you too. I'm keeping the bed warm for you, so come home soon. I sent a wireless kiss to my girl in LA and said good night. Chapter 28. At 7:15 Monday morning, Levon watched the driver pull the black sedan up to the entrance of the Wailea Princess. Levon got into the front passenger seat as Hawkins and Barb got into the back, and when all the doors had slammed shut, Levon told Marco to please take them to the police station in KIHEI. During the ride, Levon half listened as Hawkins talked, telling him how to handle the police, saying to be helpful, to make the cops your friends and not to be belligerent because that would work against them. Levon had nodded, grunted a few times, but he was inside his head, wouldn't have been able to describe the route between the hotel and the police station, his mind fully focused on the upcoming meeting with Lieutenant James Jackson. Levon came back to the present as Marco was parking at the mini strip mall, and he jumped out before the car had fully stopped. He walked straight up to the shoebox-sized substation, a storefront wedged between a tattoo parlor and a pizzeria. The glass door was locked, and so Levon jabbed the intercom button and spoke his name, saying to the female voice that he had an appointment at 8 with Lieutenant Jackson. There was a buzz and the door opened, and they were in. The station looked to Levon like a small-town DMV. The walls were bureaucrat green, the floor a buff linoleum, the long hallway with room lined with facing rows of plastic chairs. At the end of the narrow room was a reception window, its metal shutter rolled down, and beside it was a closed door. Levon sat down next to Barbara, and Hawkins sat across from them with his notebook sticking out of his breast pocket, and they waited. At a few minutes past 8, the shuttered window opened, and people trickled in to pay parking tickets, register their cars, who knew what else. Guys with rasta hair, girls with complicated tattoos, young moms with small, bawling kids. Levon felt a stabbing pain behind his eyes, and he thought about Kim, wanting to know where she could be right now, and if she was in any pain, and why this had happened. After a while, he stood up and paced along the gallery of wanted posters, looking into the staring eyes of murderers and armed robbers, and then there were the missing children posters, some of them digitally altered to age the kids to how they might look now, having disappeared so many years ago. Behind him, Barbara said to Hawkins, "Can you believe it? We've been here 2 hours. Don't you just want to scream?" And Levon did want to scream. Where was his daughter? He leaned down and spoke to the female officer behind the window. "Does Lieutenant Jackson know we're here?" "Yes, sure, sir, he sure does." Levon sat down next to Barb, pinched a place between his eyes, wondered why Jackson was taking so long, and he thought about Hawkins, how he'd gotten in very tight with Barb. Levon trusted Barb's judgment, but like a lot of women, she made friends fast, and sometimes too fast. Levon watched Hawkins writing in his notebook, and then some teenage girls joined the line at the front desk, talking in high-pitched chatter that just about took off the top of his head. By 10:15, Levon's agitation was like the rumbling of the volcanoes that had raised his island out of the prehistoric sea. He felt ready to explode. Chapter 29. I was sitting in a hard plastic chair next to Barbara McDaniels when I heard the door open at the end of the long, narrow room. Levon leapt up from his seat and was practically in the cop's face before the door swung closed. The cop was big, mid-30s, with thick black hair and mocha-toned skin. He looked part Jimmy Smits, part Ben Affleck, and part Island Surfer God. Wore a jacket and tie, had a shield hooked into the waistband of his chinos, a gold one, which meant he was a detective. Barbara and I joined Levon, who introduced us to Lieutenant Jackson. Jackson asked me, "What's your relationship to the McDanielses?" "Friend of the family," Barbara said at the same time that I said, "I'm with the LA Times." Jackson snorted a laugh, scrutinized me, then asked, "Do you know Kim?" "No." "Have any information as to her whereabouts?" "No." "Do you know these people, or did you meet them, say, yesterday?" "We just met." "Interesting," Jackson said, smirking now. He said to the McDanielses, "You understand this man's job is to sell newspapers?" "We know that," Levon said. "Good. Just so you're clear, anything you say to Mr. Hawkins is going directly from your mouths to the front page of the LA Times." "Speaking for myself," Jackson went on, "I don't want him here. Mr. Hawkins, have a seat, and if I need you, I'll call you." Barbara spoke up. "Lieutenant, my husband and I talked it over last night, and it comes down to this. We trust Ben, and he has the power of the LA Times behind him. He might be able to do more for us than we can do alone." Jackson exhaled his exasperation, but seemed to concede the point. He said to me, "Anything out of my mouth has to be okayed by me before you run with it, understand?" I said I did. Jackson's office took up a corner at the back of the building, had one window and a noisy air conditioner. Numbers were written on the blue plasterboard walls near the phone. Jackson indicated chairs for the McDanielses, and I leaned against the door frame as he flapped open a notepad and took down basic information. Then he got down to business, working, I thought, off a notion that Kim was a party girl, questioning her late-night habits and asking about men in her life and drug use. Barbara told Jackson that Kim was a straight-A student, that she had sponsored a Christian Children's Fund baby in Ecuador, that she was responsible to a fault, and the fact she hadn't returned their call was way out of character. Jackson listened with a mostly bored look on his face before saying, "Yeah, I'm sure she's an angel. I'm waiting for the day someone comes in and says their kid is a meth head or a slut." Levon sprang to his feet, and Jackson stood up a beat after that, but by then Levon had the advantage. He shoved his palms into Jackson's beefy shoulders, sending him backward into the wall, which shook with a loud crack. Plaques and photos crashed to the floor, which is what you'd expect when 180 pounds or so is used as a wrecking ball. Jackson was the bigger and younger man, but Levon was mainlining adrenaline. Without pause, he reached down and grabbed Jackson up by his lapels and threw him against the wall again. There was another terrible crashing sound as Jackson's head bounced off the plasterboard. I watched him grab for the arm of his chair, which toppled and sent him down a third time. It was an ugly scene even before Levon crowned the moment. He stared down at Jackson and said, "Damn, that felt good, you son of a bitch." Chapter 30. A heavy-set female officer barreled toward the doorway, and I stood there like a stump, trying to absorb that Levon had assaulted a cop, shoved him, thrown him down, cursed at him, and said it felt good. Now Jackson was on his feet, and Levon was still panting. The woman cop yelled, "Hey, what's going on?" Jackson said, "We're fine here, Millie. Lost my balance. Gonna need a new chair." And he waved her off. Then he turned back to Levon, who was shouting at him, "Don't you get it? I told you last night." "We got a freaking phone call in Michigan. The man said he took my daughter, and you're trying to say Kim's a tramp?" Jackson straightened his jacket, his tie, righted his chair. His face was red, and he was scowling. He jerked the chair around, then shouted back at Levon, "You're crazy, McDaniels. You realize what you just did, you stupid fuck? You want to be locked up, do you? You think you're a tough guy? You want to find out just how tough I am? I could arrest your ass and have you put away for this. Don't you know that?" "Yeah, throw me in jail, damn you. Do that, because I want to tell the world how you treated us. What a yahoo you are." Levon. Barbara was up, begging her husband, pulling at his arm. "Stop, Levon. Control yourself. Apologize to the lieutenant, please." Jackson sat down, rolled his chair up to his desk, said, "McDaniels, don't ever put a hand on me again. Due to the fact that you're out of your fucking mind, I'll minimize what just happened in my report. Now sit down before I change my mind and arrest you." Levon was still blowing hard, but Jackson gestured to the chairs, and Levon and Barbara sat down. Jackson touched the back of his head, rubbed his elbow, then said, "Half the time a kid goes missing, one of the parents knows what happened. Sometimes both of them. Had to see where you were coming from." Levon and Barbara stared, and we all got it. Jackson had provoked them to see how they'd react. It had been a test. They'd passed, in a manner of speaking. "We've been investigating this case since yesterday morning. Like I told you when I called," Jackson said, glaring at Levon. "We've met with the Sporting Life people, also the desk and bar staff at the Princess. So far, we got nothing from that." Jackson opened his desk drawer, took out a cell phone, one of those thin, half-human devices that takes pictures, sends mail, and tells you when you're low on oil. "This is Kim's phone," Jackson said. "We found it on the beach behind the Princess. We've dumped the data and found a number of phone calls to Kim from a man named Doug Cahill." "Cahill? Cahill?" Levon said. "Doug Cahill used to date Kim. He lives in Chicago." Jackson shook his head. "He was calling Kim from Maui. Called her every hour until her mailbox filled up and stopped taking incoming calls." "You're saying Doug is here?" Barbara asked. "He's in Maui now?" "We located Cahill in Makina, worked on him for 2 hours last night before he lawyered up. He said he hadn't seen Kim, that she wouldn't talk to him, and we couldn't hold him because we have nothing on him," Jackson said, putting Kim's cell phone back in the drawer. "McDaniels, here's what we've got. You got a phone call saying Kim was in bad hands, and we have Kim's cell phone. We don't even know if a crime has been committed. If Cahill gets on a plane, there's nothing we can do to stop him from leaving." I saw Barbara start, shock coming over her face again. "Doug's not your guy," Levon said. Jackson's eyebrows shot up. "Why do you say that?" "I know Doug's voice. The man who called us wasn't Doug."